everything else. I think it's time we put a felon in the White House. Trump 2024, baby. Let's save this country and make America great again.
I really quickly want to touch on something because I know that many of you prepared for today's hearing by making sure that you got a little bit of information about immigrants and crime in your cities. Let me ask each of the mayors, just yes or no. Have any of you been made aware of any immigrant that has had 34 felony convictions that has still been able to roam around in your cities? Anyone?
No, ma'am.
34 felony convictions.
No,
from the immigrants. Anybody?
I'm not aware.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious because we are so concerned about crime, and I know that my Republican colleagues would never want anybody with 34 felony convictions roaming around because that could be a danger to the community, but I will move on. The Republicans put more effort into producing their little propaganda trailer for this hearing than they have into reforming America's immigration system. And that's why we're here today. In fact, Republicans are beating up on the vast majority of you about what you're doing for your citizens, but the last time I checked, you're actually showing up. You may or may not be aware, but the NRCC just instructed Republicans to stop their town hall meetings because their constituents were showing up and telling them to do your jobs. If I had to sum up some of what you have said thus far today, I would sum it up as you have been trying to tell them as politely as you can to do their jobs. In fact, we know that they have not done their jobs, and so they're trying to force you to do it for them by turning your local law enforcement officers into ICE agents. They have this fake outrage about how immigrants are stealing resources and jobs from Americans when residents of Boston, Chicago, New York City, and Denver are subsidizing public services in their districts and their states because the Republicans refuse to ensure that their constituents earn a livable wage. Look, they don't have a plan to fix immigration in America because they don't want to. Mass deportation isn't a plan. Arresting kids in schools or worshipers in church isn't a plan. But there are important points to discuss as it relates to immigration in America. So, Mr. Beer, in January, you testified before the Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration, Integrity, Security, and Enforcement. During that hearing, we played a little game called Rhetoric or Reality. Do you remember that?
I remember, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead for round two. Why don't we? Rhetoric or reality? Immigrants are a burden to the American taxpayers because they deplete our federal resources.
That would be rhetoric.
Correct. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that immigrants will lower U.S. deficits by a cumulative $1 trillion and increase the U.S. economy's size by nearly $9 trillion over 10 years. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In 2023, 47 million immigrants paid nearly $652 billion in taxes, $58.1 billion in taxes alone into Texas. Rhetoric or reality? During his first administration, Trump improved enforcement of U.S. immigration laws.
He did not.
In fact, President Trump closed almost all immigration courts for removal proceedings, cut prosecutions for unauthorized entry by 87%, cut ICE removals to the lowest level in the history of the agency, and released 9,000 people with violent crime convictions back into our communities. Is that correct?
That's right, yes.
So rhetoric or reality? President Trump's immigration policies make American communities safer.
No, they don't make communities safer.
In fact, nearly 100,000 unauthorized immigrants have obtained legal status through their cooperation with law enforcement. And local law enforcement agencies have more than 300,000 pending requests for immigrants seeking legal status based upon their cooperation with law enforcement, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Is that correct?
That's right. Immigrants work with law enforcement to stop and solve crimes.
Thank you. That was one of my rhetoric or reality questions. Sorry. The question was, immigrants without legal status can help stop crime. That's correct.
Yes,
right?
that's
All
correct.
right. And Mr. Beer, isn't it true that Republicans are threatening to illegally strip cities of law enforcement grants intended for local policing and public safety if they don't go along with Trump's immigration agenda?
That's right. They want to redistribute the fiscal burden onto the Democratic cities and away from the Republican one.